Right, I thought it was about time for an update on the VR6 conversion in the E46 Coupe. So let's go over to that. Let's move this bag out the way. I swear there was an engine in there. Seems to have disappeared. I remember where I put it. Yeah, sorry. Yep. It's in this one. There it is. Right, to cut a very long story short, and there is kind of method to the madness. Still doing the VR6 conversion, but I'm going to take a side step. Some would say a backward step. I don't know. But I'm going to go with a VR5 first. Now the reason for doing that is it's going to be easier to get the VR5 in, simply because it's slightly shorter, which means that the issue that I'm going to have with the steering rack I won't have with the VR5. I'll still have it with the VR6, and I know I can get past it. It's just going to require a bit more work, but I'm eager to get the engine in, bolted in, and start using it and abusing it. So that's why I bought this one. So this is a 20 valve VR5, which came out of the Passat. So the plan was to use this one, still finish off my adapter plate for the gearbox, so I can use a BMW gearbox with this, and I'm still doing that. I had the engine scanned, so you can see here that's the BMW engine. You see the white paint that the guy had to spray on it to get it scanned, 3D laser scanned, and I had this scanned as well. So I'm just drawing up the adapter plate as we speak. Just finalising the design on that one, and then I can get that made, which means I can bolt the BMW gearbox up to this and put it in the car. Well, that was kind of the plan. Now in terms of management, ECU management, I was going to go, well, I'd like to go, but I need to get a second mortgage, with a Cyvex. Now I still need to figure out how to use one and have some practice with one, etc. So I was a bit nervous about jumping in on that straight away. So obviously there's VVT control, inlet and exhaust, and there's drive-by-wire throttle body, and it can get kind of complex. So I just wanted to simplify things. So I bought another VR5. I say that whilst I'm talking about simplifying things, but this one is a 10 valve. So this is basically the 12 valve equivalent of the VR5, if that makes sense. So with the VR6 they did a 12 valve, which was the early one, and a 24 valve, which was the later one. Same thing with the VR5, they did a 10 valve with the early one, and then a 20 valve with the later one. Now the older one has no VVT, inlet or exhaust, it's cable throttle, so it's just going to be easier to get in and get it mapped up. And I already have an ECU, it's only a mega squirt, but I have one, so I can kind of use that to play, to get it mapped, or to map it, should I say. And then once I'm a bit more confident in obviously building this, the adapter plate being what it should be, the engine being built and calibrated and making the right power, then I can move on to either dropping a 20 valve in for a bit more power, whilst I use the car and have some fun with it, and then at the same time I can be fabricating the VR6, which will take me a little bit longer because I've got to clear the subframe and clear the steering rack. So that's the plan. Now, so where I am currently is I need to make the inlet manifold, the exhaust manifold, the engine mounts, the adapter plate, or finish the adapter plate. So I've whacked the VR6 back in here just to allow me to kind of work out space and stuff for the inlet and exhaust, because clearly if it fits in the E36 it will fit in the E46, because there's a little bit less space in the E46, sorry, a little bit less space in the E36. Right, quick change to the end of this video. I had an idea whilst making the video that it would probably be easier to lay everything out and explain it kind of in situ, rather than go around piecemeal and kind of not make a lot of sense. So what I've done, I've laid it all out, and I'll explain as I go around. So we have a Garrett GT3071, we have the OEM exhaust manifold flipped 180 degrees. We've got a VR5 10 valve engine. We have a VR6 lower manifold, the mating flange, some bits of alloy tube, a cut down 2JZ from a Toyota Supra, or I think Sora, VR5 throttle body. I've got a wastegate over there and then a dump valve there. That is the original adapter plate for this engine to mate it to an Audi gearbox, because obviously this is a longitudinal configuration. That's the flywheel and clutch from a BMW 328. Got a BMW 3 Series gearbox, and then this is part of the Mega Square ECU, and then that's just the OEM engine wiring. So that's kind of a walk around and just explaining what everything is. And I guess now I'll try and go into a bit of detail just to explain what I've done and why. So I'll probably start with the most important bit, which is the adapter plate. So apologies for this part of the engine. I've taken it all apart because I've taken the head off to put a spacer plate on, which I'm just waiting for it to arrive, but I can still explain anyway. So this adapter plate is usually bolted to the engine once all the covers and stuff are in, and it allows you to mate an Audi gearbox, I think 01E is the right code, to this engine. So what I have done is I have kind of used the design of that adapter plate as my kind of starting point to make mine. So rather than mating to an Audi gearbox, it mates to a BMW gearbox. So what I'm going to do is I've scanned all the parts I need, and I'm just drawing it in CAD with the correct spacing, so I can work out how do I explain it, how, in essence, how far back the engine, so the gearbox needs to sit so it clears all the mounting holes. Anyway, this is the ring gear for the starter from the Passat as well, so I'm going to utilise that and utilise the Passat starter motor. Then what I'll do is I'll get a custom made flywheel. This is dual mass, so I'll just get a single mass one made without a ring gear, and then that gives me the ability to kind of space things out, just to make sure that the final design has the correct spacing. And then once I've done that, I'll get a custom flywheel made which has the ring gear attached, so it's a bit lighter and a bit more robust. Obviously once that's done, the gearbox can bolt up no problem with the correct orientation. Then obviously to get it into the vehicle, I'll use the OEM gearbox mounts, and then I'll have to custom make some mounts for the engine. Now on the VR6 I've already done that. This being a VR5, it's a slightly different arrangement, but I know some of the mounts do line up. The difficulty is the passenger side, which is this side, because as you can see the engine mount is built into this kind of oil cooler housing and oil filter, which is just under there. So it's all kind of one unit, so I'm probably going to try and maintain that, and then just custom make everything from kind of under here to the BMW subframe. And then, excuse me, on the driver's side I'll get rid of that and just reuse the one I've already made if it lines up with the VR5. I'm expecting it to, but we'll see, because that one sits too far back, so it will hit against the steering rack. So again, once that's done, the engine can bolt in. So I'll have the engine mounts made, and then the gearbox mounts made, the adapter plate will be in, so in essence it's in and good to go. What next? Inlet manifold. So as I explained before, this is a 10 valve VR5, so I can use the 12 valve VR6 lower manifold, which is what this is here, and then I'll cut one cylinder off. This is the VR5 fuel rail, and then this is the kind of mating surface from the original VR6 manifold, which I've just obviously cut off, so that will fit, or should I say wrong way round. No, and the right way round to begin with. That bolts up to there, and these little runners will just be bolted on, and then there'll be a plate here, and this manifold will be welded to it. So it'll still be a two-piece design, so I can unbolt the plenum and then have the lower manifold separately. Then I'll use this little throttle body adapter with the VR5 throttle body, and that bolts up nicely to there. This is just the intercooler piping, which is quite self-explanatory. And that's kind of it for the inlet manifold side of things. Moving on to the exhaust. I was going to originally make this a log manifold, but then I wanted to kind of reuse the original kind of VR5 exhaust manifold because it looks like it flows quite well. So what I've done is I've cut the manifold off the flange, so it normally sits that way. Obviously I've cut it and flipped it, so I'll weld it back on that way. Now these three ports line up to these three, but these two kind of oval type shaped ones don't line up, so I've had to cut those off, and then I'll reshape them and weld them back on so they line up. And then obviously that brings the turbo to the front, so I'll make a kind of a downpipe from this flange downwards, which will go out 90 degrees down and be welded to a T3 flange, which obviously feeds into that turbo. Exhaust side, it will just literally run straight along and then kind of go out the back of the BMW. Wastegate, as it comes down this 90-degree bend, I'll come straight out for the wastegate, so the wastegate will sit kind of that way, and then just the dump pipe will just come out of here and go down to the down to the exhaust, or I'll dump it out of the bonnet or something, I'm not sure. I'll probably rejoin it back in. So that's it for the exhaust. And then I think last is probably the wiring. So I'll reuse all of the OEM wiring, and then I'll plug that up into a Mega Squirt. I think it's an MS2 V3. So I was previously going to use this Mega Squirt with a M50 BMW engine. So what I've done is I've gutted this case. I'll just try it. And in here, look how clear it is. So it's basically a plug and play unit for a M50. So you can put a Mega Squirt ECU into it without having to change any of the harnesses and stuff. But in here I've got the drivers for, which is up here, for the coils. So there's 6 of them, but clearly this is a VR5, so I'll have to use 5 of them. So literally what I'll do is I will cut off the connector for the VW ECU and solder on this one, so that plugs this wiring through this kind of junction box, if you want to call it that, and then out of here into the Mega Squirt ECU. And obviously all my drivers for the coils and stuff are in there, so that makes it nice and simple. Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, this engine hasn't got VVT or drive-by-wire, so that MS2 V3 can handle it. I know they struggle, if at all, they can't really run drive-by-wire and inlet VVT from what I understand. But yeah, that's kind of it. I think that's probably a better explanation than trying to do things piecemeal. So yeah, progress made, still quite a bit to do, but we're getting there. As always, thanks for watching, and I will catch you on the next one. Cheers, bye.